right? A lot of people incorrectly assume that real estate somehow magically passes to a surviving spouse or kids. Um, Typically, that doesn't magically happen. There are issues that can arise even when a family gets along. So, making sure it's smooth in that regard. Minor children, right? Even if you're married, the minors are going to unnecessarily complicate the probate matter, right? Even if all of the assets ultimately will go to the spouse, because there are minors, the court will not let the spouse handle things just unsupervised. And so it greatly increases the cost of probate.
Hello and welcome to the Attorney Post, where we give you the inside scoop with top attorneys in their field. And now, here's our host, Justin West.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Attorney Post, where we discuss what's going on in various facets of the law with attorneys at the top of their game to help you navigate the various ins and outs of legal fields and jurisdictions, because, as I always say, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by Pamela Hailey-Petty, who runs the eponymous law firm that bears her name, the Hailey-Petty Law Firm, which operates down in Austin and San Antonio. Pamela, how are you doing today?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much for joining me. Before we get started, as always, we're going to jump over and take a look at your site. So if I can get my Zoom to cooperate with me here. There we go. This is Pam's site. It is Hailey-Petty Law. That's Hailey-Petty-Law, haileypettylaw.com. As always, we will have a link to her website down below in the description. So if you're watching this on YouTube or any of the podcast repositories, just click down there. She also has phone numbers in Austin. It is 512-910-8977. And in San Antonio, it is 210-570-2458. Hailey-Petty Law is a Texas estate planning firm with offices again in Austin and San Antonio. The firm focuses on estate planning, trust, probate, trust administration, long-term care planning, and related business matters, with a strong emphasis on educating clients so they understand not only what documents they need, but why they need them. The educational angle is actually very unusually central to the firm's positioning. They offer free consultations, workshops, probate checklists, estate planning guides, and other resources aimed at making complicated planning decisions understandable. So, and she has wonderful reviews as well. As you can see, she has over 160 reviews on Google. I think she's got basically a 5-star rating. People do like working with her. It seems to be the case. So hopefully we're going to have a really good conversation today. Before we get started, though, we are also going to jump over and read from our two sponsors. Our first sponsor today is a new old sponsor. It is Groove Funnels, and I want to make sure I get the right read here because they're changing. How many tools are you paying for just to run your marketing? One for funnels, one for email, another for your CRM, one for content, one for courses, and now a whole collection of AI tools on top of that. Groove is the place to be and has been for a long time. Groove Funnels has built their platform around the idea of being an all-in-one platform, but they are now changing to Scale.gg, bringing those jobs together in one connected marketing platform. Scale.gg includes tools for websites, funnel campaigns, email, CRM, content, courses, video, automations, and more, all with AI built right into the workflow from the beginning. And with their campaigns, you can actually turn an idea or offer into an actual coordinated marketing campaign instead of starting another blank AI chat box text and trying to build it out piece by piece. Best of all, you can start using parts of Scale.gg completely for free, no credit card required, so you don't have to replace your entire tech stack just to see what it can do. Start with one tool, put it to work, and expand from there to see if it makes sense for your business. Check out the new Scale.gg at theattorneypost.com/groove. That is theattorneypost.com/groove. And they are changing, they are rebranding, but this is still the same Groove Funnels we have been sharing with you guys for the last, I think, 2.5, maybe 3 years. They've been a long time sponsor of the podcast. Highly recommend them. We built some websites on their platform. Sometimes we do it really quickly. In fact, one of the websites we have built on their platform is Rank with News. And I need to find my read for that one. Is not being in the news regularly costing your firm or your business credibility and visibility? Do you feel that getting found in Google search is more about dumb luck than science? What if there was a guaranteed way to get your law firm or your business featured in major national publications like Yahoo News, Forbes, Bloomberg, Reuters, AP News, etc., and seeing those articles ranking locally, sometimes nationally, oftentimes in as little as 8 hours or less for major competitive keywords that people are actually looking for? What else would you even need to know? Rank with News is simply the most powerful way to hit page one in under 2 weeks, safely, organically, and permanently. This is guaranteed SEO, search engine optimization, on steroids, ranking quickly and sticking long term. If you're tired of poor visibility for your business, please visit rankwithnews.com or rankwith.news to learn more and book a time to speak with our specialist about featuring your firm or your business in major national 8-figure traffic sites that can launch you to page one in a matter of hours. Get media exposure, rank higher in Google, build credibility, and win more customers and clients with rankwith.news. Alrighty, and then let me kill the old screen share here and jump back over. All right, so I am joined with the lovely Pamela Hailey-Petty.
Yes.
She is the founder and managing attorney of Hailey-Petty Law Firm with offices again in San Antonio and Austin. Pamela's practice again centers on estate planning, probate, trusts, helping Texas families protect what they have built and prepare for what comes next. But she also brings again a somewhat unusual background to estate law because before becoming an attorney, Pamela worked in the Texas governor's office where she served as an investment manager and deputy director for the state's $300 million emerging technology fund. She earned her business degree with a concentration in economics from Texas A&M University Corpus Christi, and later her JD from St. Mary's University School of Law. She's been licensed in Texas since 2012, which is apparently when the world was supposed to end, if I recall, the Mayan calendar or whatever it was. And she's been operating her firm since 2014. She's built a firm around an educational approach to estate planning, helping clients actually understand wills and trusts and probate and Medicaid planning and the decisions that the family may be facing along the way. And of course, outside the office, Pamela and her husband also help run their family ranch in the Brazos Valley. So having said all that, that was a mouthful. Pamela, thank you very much for joining me on the Attorney Post. And again, I'm sure I barely even scratched the surface. So my very first question to you is simply this: what did I miss? What should people know about you, Pamela, that wasn't included up there?
Yeah, in terms of the law firm, we are a holistic firm on the kind of estate planning, probate, guardianship, Medicaid. On that, in those areas of law, there's really very little that we don't cover. And so while some firms focus on areas within those practice areas, we do all of them. And we really help clients understand, what it means to have a trust and make sure that it will function the way it needs to, so that your family isn't surprised with some unintended consequences. And then on the personal side, I have 2 young kids. My husband's former military, he's chief pilot for Starflight now. We have a heavy military and first responder influence in our lives. And then, just having 2 young kids, right, 6 and 8, I know how hard those decisions are, right? Oftentimes easy on the finance side, not so easy on the more personal side of, the decisions people have to make when they're going through this process. So, yeah, I think that covers, and I'm from Austin, right? Longtime Texan.
Texas native.
Yeah, lived in Austin, since 1981. So, used to go to San Antonio all the time. Not a recent transplant, although most of our clients are.
Where do they tend to come from? Do you get a lot of them? I know that there's a big influx from like New York and California, but are they just from all over, or?
I mean, from all over, but we have a lot of people from California, getting more West Coast, a decent number from Florida, and then internationally. I'm not sure why we're an attractive firm for international clients, but we have a good number that either own property internationally, they've moved here and are on some sort of, visa. But yeah, from all over. I mean, we have clients in Australia, England, quite a few that have real estate or other assets in India, Mexico, so.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to pick your brain about that a little bit later because I'm sure each one of those comes with a whole host of very unique challenges. And I'm curious just how deep you have to dive into the laws of those various countries in order to make all the get all the T's crossed and the I's dotted, so to speak. We'll come back to that in a little bit. We'll put a pin in
Yeah.
it. But let me ask you some general questions first, because you've been practicing since 2014 when you passed the bar in 2012. Um, why law? What got you into law? Did you always know that you
Hmm.
wanted to be an attorney? Did you grow up watching Perry Mason reruns in the 80s like I did? Or, or did you, is it something you kind of stumbled into and you realized like you had an aptitude for it you weren't expecting?
Yeah, I kind of stumbled into it. No, if you would have asked me, I remember taking those assessment tests in high school.
Hmm.
What are you good at? And it always said politician or attorney. And I thought that was just a ridiculous um, thought. And it was in my undergrad, I had to take business law as part of my business undergrad degree. And I just loved it. I found it fascinating, right? Contracts and it's is somewhat of a boring area of law, but it's so essential. And I remember thinking I got the playbook for life. Like this is how we regulate conduct,
Yeah.
and so I just loved it. And so I knew I wanted to go, but I did go back, and that's when I worked for the governor's office before I went back to law school. And while I was there, I got to work with a lot of, early stage companies, the attorneys drafting the agreements, being taught by some of our very influential entrepreneurs in Central Texas who have, grown and sold major companies here, learning, capitalization structures. And I thought I wanted to do that area of law
Mhm.
until I actually did it on the legal side, and I could not stand it. But it's very good information. It was intellectually interesting, but I just didn't want to practice that,
Yeah.
area of law for the remainder of my life. And during law school, and I think this kind of gets into it, why this area? During law school, we learned about some issues related to our family ranch, and right, how things were just not planned well and litigation ensued. And I saw, right, firsthand how important that was. And I think it combined, you know, several of the things that I was interested in. And I really like the interpersonal part of it with the kind of strategy side of things. So ultimately, that's why I got into this area.
Gotcha. I gotta ask about the family ranch. Now, is this I hear ranch, I think animals. Is this horses? Is this cattle? Is this sheep? Is this goats? Is it pigs? Is it
Um,
is it ducks?
Cows. Yeah. And my parents are older now, and our kids are young, so we've kind of scaled things back. But we're definitely above the average, but we're not one of the big, ranches.
Hmm.
I think for sure, right, by transplant standards, it's a big ranch. By Texas standards, it's an okay size ranch.
That's awesome. So do you guys do, you said cows, so is that for beef? Is that for milk? Is
For
that
beef.
oh, okay.
Actually, my
Um,
parents do have a milk cow now, but
do you guys sell
I
that
that was
commercially,
never.
or is that this isn't what the podcast is about, but I'm just curious. We work with a lot of local farmers and we buy our meat locally and everything else. I'm always curious when I find someone that actually does it for a living.
Yeah, we more so, it somewhat depends, but more often we just do auction, right? Just
Gotcha.
commercial cattle. We do have some registered now, and we will sell the cattle, quote, on the hoof
Uh-huh.
for families and family and friends, where they buy the live cattle and then we'll grow them out at the ranch. But we don't do that, through the farmers market or through any sort of, you have to know us. to do that.
Totally fair. That's actually how we get most of our meat is from local families that we know directly, and
Yeah.
we'll buy a half a cow here and a quarter pig there or whatever. Usually half a cow to a whole cow and a quarter to a half pig and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's a great way to do it. So
That's a big, yeah. And we just had one butchered. But yeah, that's a big undertaking to.
yeah, that's a job in and of itself. So the fact that you guys kind of do that, like in your spare time, like that's your, I don't want to call it your hobby, but like I would think, piloting and law would be your primary focuses. And so the fact that you also incidentally run a ranch that seems to be at least modestly commercially successful is fascinating. So,
Yeah, our part of that is pretty small since the kids. Before that, we had a lot more involvement for sure.
well,
But
they're young, they'll get older, and then you can make them have, do chores, muck out the stalls, and
yep,
then
they like
feed
the
the cattle.
idea of it right now.
Oh yeah, probably not the most practical. So I'm sorry, I'm just gonna go off on a tangent. There was one, is it Planet Earth, or one of those movies those TV shows on the Discovery Channel years ago that would show like different cultures and tribes. I brought this up to my kids repeatedly over the years because there was a little like 8-year-old boy, I think. He might not even have been 8, he might have been 7. And his job was herding the family's like 100 cattle. I think it was like 50 or 100 miles to water by himself, fending off
Oh wow.
lions and everything else. This is just a kid, like a little kid by himself. Now, incidentally, he had the camera crew with him, like recording during this particular thing, but it's like he just knew where he was going. He just did it. And it's like, that was his thing. And I'm like, if I can get my kids to pick up their socks,
I know.
I'm ahead of
Boy,
the
has the
game.
bar changed.
We've really lowered the bar. But that's that. So let me ask you this: give me a pitch for your firm. You sort of have already done this a little bit, but if I didn't know anything about you, if we had 30 seconds or a minute in an elevator, and you could tell me, you could define very clearly who your ideal clients are and why they choose to work with you, what would that be?
So, we try to provide kind of white glove service,
Hmm.
right? So what we say is we make inheritance easy, right? If we're doing a trust, we want to make sure that it works when it needs to. And so we handhold clients through that process. And same thing on the probate side, right? We handhold people through that process because, right, we do this all the time, but this is oftentimes someone's first, um, you know, um, interaction with a law firm and needing to hire an
Yeah.
attorney. So, okay, this is the next step. We don't just get you appointed, right? Making sure that you understand, okay, this is the next step, and then what do you need to accomplish it, right? And so we don't just, do something kind of one and done and then push you off to the next, right? Make sure it's done well.
What are the telltale signs for the average person that they should probably contact you or your firm?
Mm. Well, I just talked about this on my webinar. Most people in Texas need, if nothing else, just a basic estate plan, right? So especially if you own property, if you have minor children, or if there's stepchildren, either yours or your spouse's, those are 3 red flags that you need a good plan in place, right? A lot of people incorrectly assume that real estate somehow magically passes to a surviving spouse or kids. Typically, that doesn't magically happen. There are issues that can arise even when a family gets along. So, making sure it's smooth in that regard. Minor children, right? Even if you're married, the minors are going to unnecessarily complicate the probate matter, right? Even if all of the assets ultimately will go to the spouse, because there are minors, the court will not let the spouse handle things just unsupervised. And so it greatly increases the cost of probate. And then stepkids. If you have stepkids, do not think that you inherit your spouse's interest in the house. It will
Hmm.
go to the kids, even if jointly owned. And so those are the three things that come to mind. I mean, there are others, but
Obviously, yeah.
those are the top three things that I think of that, that people incorrectly assume, oh, well, it'll be easy for me. I'm the surviving spouse. Everything is jointly owned. Then that might be true. And it still doesn't mean it's going to be easy.
Hmm. So if somebody has their name on the deed of the house, maybe the deed is in both spouses' names, is there still sometimes an issue when one spouse dies and then the house goes up or it's contested? And what
Yep.
causes that? And how do people stave that off? I mean, obviously having a trust, but like, how do they?
What other options?
How does
Yeah.
this blindside people? I'm sure they get blindsided by it. Tell me about that.
So, in other states, it's common practice to have the deed drafted, right? Say it's purchased during the marriage, and let's say both spouses' names are on the deed, right? So you own 50%, your spouse owns 50%. People assume that, well, the deed is in both of our names, their interest is going to automatically pass to me
Hmm.
with rights of survivorship. And that's how it works in other states. That is not how it works in Texas. There are no rights of survivorship in the deed unless you put them there, right? And simply telling the title company is not sufficient, right? I've seen this exactly 3 times in the last, whatever, 13 years. So very uncommon, right? And so how do you avoid it? Well, let me go over real quick what can cause the issues. So let's say your spouse passes, they have kids that are not your kids, right? Their 50% interest that is now owned within the estate goes to their children. So you keep your 50%, your spouse's 50% goes to the stepkids, right? Unless and that's right if there is no will, right? So if there is a will and you probate it, then their interest goes to you if you're the sole beneficiary. If there's a transfer on death deed, their interest, assuming you're the named beneficiary, goes to you. If you put it in a trust and the trust states that you're the other beneficiary of the trust, then you, by virtue of the terms of the trust, are the beneficiary of that. And so maybe you own all of that, right? That depends on what the trust does. But um, you know, you have to do something. And if there is no will, then that something necessarily involves the stepkids. We have to have them involved. And so what that looks like varies, right? But many times we hear clients, but this, but I did this, but that's not what he wanted. That, how do I not inherit? I'm the surviving spouse, right?
Hmm.
So back to what we were talking about before the webinar, very harsh consequences to not having a good plan. And these things are very easy to avoid, right, with proper planning. So you
Gotcha.
can, right, have a will, you have to probate it, right? So if you are a surviving spouse and you're relying on that will, it has no effect until the court admits it. You have to probate the will if there are probate assets to transfer, and that would include the house.
Gotcha. You mentioned that you do workshops and webinars and everything else. I'm going to jump back over to your
Mhm.
website really quickly. I saw up here in the resources tab, you have a video library, upcoming workshops, upcoming webinars. Who should listen to those? Is it just people in Texas? Would people outside of Texas benefit from that at all? Are these regularly occurring things? Are they done via Zoom? Are they done in person? Tell me about that. How does somebody get involved with what you're doing?
Yeah, no, you can sign up directly on there. You can always email info at. We have some, more evergreen, right? That's an evergreen webinar that we put up. We used to do, and we are again going to do some in-person workshops either next month or October, where we're going to do some live in-person workshops. People really lost interest in those over the last year or so, so we stopped doing them. But the webinars we do either on demand or live webinars, like the one I just did was a live webinar, typically Tuesday afternoon during the lunch hour. And so we go over various topics. Do I need a will or do I need a trust? Right? What accomplishes what? What's the difference? That's our most common question. What is estate planning generally, right? That's the one I just did. So kind of what is the basis of a good plan? Common myths, right? Do you think your spouse automatically inherits your house, right? Where we heavy emphasis on, overcoming some misconceptions and myths. I have one over, what is probate? Because there are some common misconceptions that we hear on probate. And so really just trying to get people to understand what is this area of law
Yeah.
and why are these things important. I want to do this probably next year where we'll do one on guardianship and Medicaid planning, right? These are things that some firms don't do that we do as an area of maybe not focus, but we certainly do a decent number every year.
Gotcha. You said a lot of people bring is, the difference between a trust and a will. Obviously, probate is the official process of handling the person's will, distributing property, paying bills, like all of that stuff, right?
Yep.
Where does the rubber meet the road for the average person on whether they need for that process, or et cetera, a will or a trust? Are wills like, is that the Timu version of a trust, really? Do most people really need a trust? Or like, is a will good enough for a lot of people, but just not everybody?
Yeah, I mean, it's highly dependent. On the last will versus trust, I'll give you an example. Someone asked, okay, is this really dependent on what assets I have? Sometimes, yes. It's not necessarily correlated, right? Sometimes we do trust planning where that's really the only asset. And that's exactly why we do trust planning for that, right? So envision, someone main asset is the house. We have, I'm just making something up, but we see this all the time, right? Main asset's the house. There's 5 beneficiaries. If we, want everything to go smoothly outside of probate, we can have a trust, own it at death, where we're really designating one person that has control, right? Authority to sell the house if they need to, evict someone from the house if they need to, if one of the kids or someone else is squatting in the house, right? We're dealing with that right now on an estate where we're seeking eviction of one of the beneficiaries because we need to sell the house. Right, we can do that through the trust, and it's quicker to happen versus going through the court. Making sure that that person has the ability to deal with whatever assets are there so that they can pay bills again quickly, right? If there's a mortgage on the house, keeping the house insured, all of those things that will continue. Right, making sure that one person has access and then access to your liquid funds to make sure they don't have to dip into their own funds. So something that we often deal with, right? Again, I'm going back to it's just the house, because oftentimes, even if it's a larger estate, it's only the house that we're dealing with in probate because everything else transfers via beneficiary designation. And that can cause a problem too, right? So this kind of goes back to your question. If we were relying on a will to transfer, everything else goes by beneficiary designation, and we're only dealing with the house through probate. The person seeking probate has to upfront all of those expenses until we can sell the house. Not only until we get access to be able to access any estate accounts and whatnot, if those all transfer by beneficiary designation, we're only dealing with the house, then, and now with the market the way it is, that takes a while to sell. And so they're fronting all of those expenses. And in Travis County, right, I mean, the property tax expenses alone can be $1,000 a month, you know, and so they're having to maintain those until such time as we can get it sold, right? So that's kind of that process versus let's set up the trust, funnel some assets into the trust, so that the person that you're designating can get to it quicker, and then they have access to your money to continue those payments.
Gotcha.
Right. So that you can see it's not necessarily correlated to the level of asset. And that's just one example, right? Why else would we want to do it if we're anticipating a will contest? We'd rather use a trust. If there is out-of-state real estate, right, we would use a trust because we're going to transfer that out-of-state real estate into the Texas trust so that we don't have to probate here in Texas and wherever the real estate sits, which is what would be required with the real estate in several states. So that's very common. But the will contest is, a real potential. So back to, my bought the house with my spouse. That spouse has kids from another relationship, and I want to make sure that it gets the house gets transferred, and all of the assets get transferred to the surviving spouse. If we're relying on a will, right, that is more prone to a will contest. It's easier to contest a will versus putting it in a trust. Depending on how you write that trust, the beneficiaries don't necessarily even get a copy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the surviving spouse can say, no, I'm not providing you that copy. And by virtue of it already being funded correctly, that's it. Unless they went to, so, that dispenses with a lot of the will contests. So it's highly dependent on the types of assets, how we want it to transfer, what, if any, kind of contest are we expecting? And then just client expectations. Do you want to try to avoid probate? Right. Oftentimes the trust is the way to do that. You can try to do it other ways. Those tend to be clunky, but you can try to do it other ways. But yeah, so that's typically right. Oftentimes it makes it smoother.
Okay. This is an area that a lot of people just never think about. And I guess I'm glad that there's attorneys out there like you, because my eyes would glaze over if I had to like sort through all of these facts and dates and all the everything like, ugh. And I don't think we ever had an issue in my particular family, but I've heard of these horror stories of families just falling apart because everyone thought the will said something, but it didn't say something else, or there was, a trust issue or whatever it happens to be. So it's a fascinating area of law, and it's an important area of law, especially when you're caring about what you've built in your life and making sure that when you exit this mortal plane, what you're hoping to have happen is actually what happens, and ideally in a way that is smooth and seamless for your family members and your loved ones. So that's
yeah. I mean, they're going through a hard time at that point.
I mean, it's one of the stressors in life is divorce and death. Those are the two like really, really big ones. And yeah,
practitioners in this area, they call it family law with dead people.
Family law with dead people. You had mentioned something in the pre-roll, which I thought was kind of funny. You said you've had a lot of ashes come through your office. I'm assuming you regularly have people bring grandma in, earn it all.
Not regularly, but we have certainly had our share where we take control. We could take possession as the law firm until the dispute over who actually gets possession of the ashes. So we certainly have had plenty of ashes in the office. We have right now, I think we have about 4 boxes of personal property, and I'd have to go back and look, but I think that dispute started in 2021.
Oh, wow.
And right, there's not much in terms of monetary value in that particular one. It's sentimental. And we think we're going to reach an agreement, and then something breaks down. And then, and these are, I often say, like, nobody's making out on
Yeah.
this. And these are not the ones that we enjoy doing, right?
What's the
But
weirdest aspect you've had people fight over? I talked to a family law attorney a while back, and she told me the story of this contentious divorce, and it was racking up thousands and thousands and thousands of extra dollars in attorney's fees because they couldn't agree on one thing. And I think it was literally like the box set of the Lord of the Rings, which you can still buy online for like $100 or whatever. But like this particular, it wasn't signed. There's nothing special about it. You could have bought a brand new one, probably in better condition even, but they could not see head to head or eye to eye, and it just
mhm.
dragged the whole process out. Have you had those sorts of issues happen? And if so, what's one of the weirdest
Yeah,
assets you've
one
had
of
people
them,
fight over, other than the dead body or the remains, the
the
cremains?
ashes. Um, okay, so one is coming to mind, but it is a current dispute, so I'm not going to say.
Okay.
That one. What other? I mean, everything, at least to us, it seems very, standard. Like, um,
They're just teacups.
well,
They're
there
just
was this, there was a, maybe this is the oddest one. It didn't actually exist, but opposing counsel kept on insisting that they needed to get in the house because they thought there were Picassos
no.
in the home. This is all public. Yes, this is all public record. Because it was up until now, it was a dependent administration in Travis County. So we were, yeah, this is on the record in the Travis County matter. Anyways, um, because that particular client was wealthy, and essentially the father of the decedent was a dictator, and he overthrew a government. And so the opposing counsel said there had to be um, valuable art in the estate. So that was probably the oddest.
Ethereal
uh,
Picasso.
yeah,
I like
like,
that. That's
no,
kind of fun.
there's no. If that ever existed, it's been given away.
That's fair. Or it's hidden in the walls, right? And that the secret, like the hiding places nobody can ever find. Let me ask you, I'm gonna go back. We kind of jumped right into the subject matter. I'm totally fine with that, but I do want to ask some of my more general questions of you just because I find they're great ways to get to know you. One of my favorite questions is about failure. You step up to bat enough
Mm,
times, nobody bats 1,000. And I'm sure that in your career, Pamela, you've probably had moments where you failed or you experienced something that felt like a fail. A decision didn't go the right way, clients didn't do something they said they're going to do, the paperwork didn't get turned in the right way, whatever it happened to be. What's one of the moments in your legal career over the last 12, 14 years that you would consider a failure? But what did you learn from that, and how do you always make sure you're carrying that forward to give the best care to your clients?
I'm having a really hard time. Not that I haven't failed. Let's not.
I just don't fail. It's fine. At
um,
Hailey-Petty Law, it's 100% success rate. There you go. You heard it here, folks. You heard it here.
yeah. Let's see. Um,
Well, while you're percolating on that, maybe this will make it easier because my flip side of that coin obviously is what's one of your biggest successes? What's one of the things in your law firm that you're the most proud of? And sometimes thinking about those are things like that'll jar the other thing loose. So if you want to start on that end of the coin first, what's something about your firm that you're really proud of, or what's a client that you helped that things were just the biggest mess ever, and by the
mm,
end brought to a resolution with the bow on top and everything?
yeah. So let's see. There's two that come to mind. One was a woman, and again, this is public record, that was disqualified by law for serving for her parents' estate. And so I guess she had been to many attorneys to figure out, how she could get their estates administered. And so we helped her ultimately getting a third party, Austin Trust Company, to serve as administrator for her parents' estates, and then getting everything, set up to go smoothly for her. So kind of that's definitely a win. A little mundane as I look at it, right? At that point in my career, I hadn't done it. So, um,
That makes a difference
uh,
for her, for sure.
yeah, I mean, I still keep in contact with her. She's very sweet, but she couldn't serve. Um, and, I guess the
What are the
other,
issues that would arise that would prevent someone from serving? You don't have to give me her specifics, but like, how does somebody, I mean, I'm assuming someone would know if they're in that position before they get in that position, or is this something that, only is found out after the fact?
well, they've actually changed the law on this, but you can't be at the time, you couldn't be a convicted felon.
Mm. I kind of wonder if it was a
Um,
criminal offense thing or something, but
yeah. Yeah, and her particular conviction the court would not have found her suitable even under the current law,
gotcha.
because we did recently get a felony drug conviction, um, a person with a felony drug conviction appointed, because they changed the law on that fairly recently. So as long as someone, what it wasn't embezzlement or
Embezzlement
something
or
like
something like that.
that, right? The court is not going to authorize a convicted, embezzler, the ability to have control over estate funds. So
What
that's still the
estate
law.
funds? I don't see any estate funds.
Yeah. The other, I think there was a matter, and we had opposing counsel and heavily court supervised. But ultimately, right, the person that passed away had ownership of an EB-5 investment, and I didn't know what that was before I took this matter. We learned very quickly, with the help of their immigration attorney, that um, their immigration status was tied to that asset. Because there was no will, it did not pass to the specific people. And so, if that asset had been transferred to the people, right, who would have received it under state law, um, they would have been subject to deportation.
Oh, wow.
And so we were able to successfully, not distribute that asset, come to a resolution in the estate administration process, so that that was avoided. But that could have been a problem, right? Um, so obviously, right, assets are important. They maintain us, but for that family, there were three surviving family members whose immigration status was potentially at issue.
Gotcha.
So, these things can touch other areas, and the probate process is really, okay, snapshot in time. Someone passes away. What do we have that we need to deal with now? And then we can do an assessment for them, right? That was the most important piece. Make sure they could stay in the country.
Yeah. You're mentioning here again, working with people who are coming in from other countries. What's the biggest challenge you face when somebody comes in from a different country? Does it vary
Mm,
completely from country to country? Do you have to take a crash course on the laws of that country? How many countries are you an expert in their legal field on now,
mm.
or at least the legal field relevant to probate
Yeah,
taxes, etc.?
I definitely don't claim expert status in any other
Well,
country.
that's a
Uh,
protected term in law too. So let me reel back from using the word
yes,
expert here. I know that
yeah.
that's a protected term, but I mean, I'm sure you have to learn certain things to work with someone from India or China or Mexico or Japan or wherever it happens to be, Mozambique.
Yeah, sometimes. So it highly depends on what we're doing, right? Are we doing estate planning? Are we handling probate? Is it estate planning with a married couple? Is it probate to a surviving spouse? These things all make differences in what the issue is. On the estate planning side, we've had to bring in experts from tax experts from the other country
Mm.
to really educate the client so that we can make proper estate planning decisions on how would that other country potentially come in to tax the worldwide assets, and how would that affect any US taxes, right? um, that the biggest issue on the estate planning side is the estate tax issue, right? When most people um, uh, married couples, each individual has a $15 million estate tax exemption, right? If they're a full citizen. Not necessarily, right? If someone is new to the country, right? That estate tax exemption can go way down. Is one individual a citizen? Like when I think back to the England, one individual in the couple was a citizen with their full estate tax exemption. The other one was not, right? And so how does that affect transfer between spouses, right? Ultimately, I remember this couple, ultimately they, decided to still pass it to each other. But, we need to understand the full ramifications of doing that. And there's different trust planning, that you can do. In my current San Antonio associate attorney is well versed in, especially right, dealing with assets in Mexico. She is not licensed in Mexico, but she frequently, co-counsels on estate planning where clients have assets here in the States and Mexico. But we oftentimes, right, have to co-counsel, right? What typically happens on the probate side is that other country won't, abide by a U.S. will. So you need a will here in the States, and you need a will, for example, in Mexico. And I've been told the same with India. We do have a couple in England where we've used the will there and vice versa, right? If they still have assets there, but typically the other country does not validate a US will. So you actually need wills in both. And so typically the answer is, well, you need to work with an attorney there to understand how the assets there transfer. We do have referrals for attorneys, and these are typically New York, Florida, the attorneys that deal with international trusts, right? You want a particular client attorney that does that regularly.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Let me shift gears for a minute because I was looking at your website and it was reminding me that one of the things you focus on, you seem to be focusing a little bit more increasingly, is long-term care planning as well. How does that factor in with having a trust? And when somebody comes to you because mom and dad are suddenly needing nursing home care, how is that a different conversation from somebody who came to you 5 years earlier and planned ahead?
Well, on the Medicaid side, right, which is typically, right, if you don't have insurance to cover or self-insured and ready to spend all of your assets you have on your long-term care, then the conversation is, well, how do we structure any pre-planning, right? If you did it well in advance, this is kind of gets into the 5-year look back period for Medicaid, right? How can we set up your estate so that assets are transferred well before the need for any long-term care arises? And that's just getting into a conversation with a client about what they want. Do you want to make sure some of your assets are there for your kids? What does that look like? And what is a relationship like with the kids, and that sort of thing. And then and that's Medicaid pre-planning, right? Where we can essentially transfer assets, typically in your 60s. And that can look various ways. And then you have the kids that come to us we need nursing home care now, right? There is no 5-year look back. They need to qualify now. And there's various options for, okay, what are the assets? How are we paying for that now? When are we going to run out? What is, so that we can figure out, can we get them qualified for any Medicaid planning? And that depends on whether they have capacity, the mom or dad still has capacity, to sign certain documents. Or if they don't, does the child have a power of attorney that gives them that ability to do different transfer instruments, or Medicaid long-term care planning? And so it's highly dependent on the power that mom and or dad gave them maybe years ago, right? So, and how does a trust enter into it, right? When we talk about Medicaid pre-planning or asset protection planning, you would transfer assets to a Medicaid asset protection trust, and then that asset is no longer mom or dad's. But it still transfers at death, right? Gets the step up at basis. I don't want to get into too much of the tax issues, but versus just a standard trust, right? A standard trust is not going to qualify for the 5-year look back period. Right? So if you transfer your house to a revocable living trust, not only is that not going to qualify you for Medicaid, and it's not going to be a good transfer under the 5-year look back rule for Medicaid planning purposes, it's also going to disqualify you, right? You have now taken an asset that is exempt for Medicaid purposes and made it count for Medicaid purposes. So the standard trust planning is not going to help you with that if you don't structure it correctly. And so that's where, going to a firm that does that type of planning, we can take a look and say, okay, well, yes, maybe we still want to do a revocable trust, which is the standard plan, but we're going to not transfer the house to the trust until after you have passed, so that you bypass any Medicaid recovery in probate, and we keep mom or dad qualified during their lifetime. So it decide, depending on what the answer for the client is, it decides what kind of trust we do, if any. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. It's a sprawling kind of a topic,
Yeah.
and so there's so many. I can only get little soundbite answers from you in the course of this
Okay.
podcast. We don't have time for a super depth thing. However, if people want an in-depth answer, I understand that you have webinars and seminars that you
Yes.
put on, so they can definitely visit Hailey-PettyLaw.com and sign up for those. Get one of the ones on demand or whatnot. Other things you have on demand, I noticed you actually have something caught my eye, a resource called Sandwich Generation ebook. And I'm like, how to make a sandwich, right? What is, first you start with like the focaccia bread, and then you got to get like a good mayo spread. No, so the sandwich
Love
generation is the weird group of people roughly in our age bracket right now. Where we have kids that we're looking out for, but we also have parents that we're looking out for. My parents have passed away, but many people in our particular age group, those of us born in the 80s, we are that sandwich generation. Are those clients effectively trying to solve two different estate plans at the same time, or resolve two different estate plans at the same time? And related to that, obviously, as our kids get older, eventually they hit 18, they become legal adults. Is an 18th birthday an overlooked estate planning deadline in the United States that the sandwich generation needs to be aware of?
So it depends, right? Oftentimes, so 18 the trigger age? The 18 is trigger age for them to sign a power of attorney, giving you the ability to make decisions for them, right? Don't send them off to college, start paying for tuition, and get no ability to get information, right? You need to have power of attorney to be able to do that. So it's trigger age for that, because they're now an adult. You don't necessarily have access to their information like you've always had. So it is a trigger age for that. Not a trigger age, in my opinion, for, oh, now they're going to serve as executor and make decisions and that sort of thing, right? Typically, we leave that for minimum age 25, right? 18, I wasn't any good at managing money, right? Typically, when I say that to clients, there's a chuckle. Like, okay, well, I can tell by your laugh that we're not going to, put Johnny in charge.
Yeah.
Some people even want to say, when they turn 18, like, no, we don't know how Johnny's turning out. So let's wait, and it's easy to revise these so that if Johnny is, responsible, we can do that at that time, but we're not going to preemptively do it. But yes, it is right. Sandwich generation dealing with how to plan their own estate and making sure that their parents have their estate planned. So yeah, a lot of these guides are more or less, checklists, kind of getting you to think about what it looks like, what issues might arise. Because again, a lot of these things, it's just a surprise to people. They don't realize how it would play out if and when something happens.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing, kind of like a casket, estate planning is the type of thing you hope that you never actually have to use yourself. But at the end of the day, it is definitely going to be something that comes into place. And so a lot of times we don't even think about it. It's like, well, it's never going to affect me because by the time it affects me, I'm dead. Of course, obviously it'll affect you if your spouse passes away first. I mean, there's a lot of ways that it does affect you, but it's one of those things that we just keep putting off. And death is not a pleasant topic to think about. Most of
Yeah.
us don't love dwelling upon our own mortality. It's very, very medieval, memento mori, remember you will die. But most of us don't love dwelling upon our ultimate departure from this life, but they are still very necessary things. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's a fascinating area, and I still feel you're not the first estate planning attorney, probate attorney, will and trust attorney I've talked to. I've talked to dozens over the years, and I still always just feel like I don't even know the questions to ask. We have a will in place, and maybe I need to get a trust as well at some point. I don't even know. And I've had this exact question. I've talked to attorneys, and so it's just one of those things that I guess for a lot of people, you don't know what you don't know, and I think that's really important. If somebody wants to know more, and obviously you've got webinars, everything else, or do you do like a consultation or anything
Hmm.
like that? How does somebody contact your firm and start the process of at least beginning to figure out if they need to work with you? What does that look like?
Yeah. So, the phone numbers are published on the website. There's the, website inquiry there in the bottom right. There's the contact us form, right? Any of those get to either Sonia or Mariana, right? The intake, people handling all the inquiries. You can also email info@haileypettylaw.com, and they can work with you to get something scheduled. And we do free initial consultations where you can kind of learn what our process is. Every firm does this a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And so, just to learn, how do we do it?
Yeah. Well, that's huge
um,
because I've talked to people in the estate and trust planning, like we don't do free consultations. It's 175 just to sit down and talk. And if you decide to work with us, that gets factored into your fees. So the fact that you're willing to just talk with people and kind of give them an option, give them the ideas, and it sounds like even if they're not ready to pull the trigger and work with you right then, you've got resources. That, well, listen, that's fine. Let's get you in the webinar. Let's get
yeah.
you this information that you need. And I think it's a very good hand-holding approach to walking people through a very confusing and convoluted for the average person subject arena, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
good.
We try to do a lot of pre-education so they come and they kind of understand, you know, what goes into the decision, at least, right?
Yeah.
Of what they want to do.
No, absolutely.
Ultimately, they're in the driver's seat, but they need to do something.
Yeah. You can't,
Guaranteed.
you're not a Tesla, you're not a Waymo. You can't drive it for them, but
Yeah.
they have to make that initial decision first. Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Well, Pamela, we're actually already coming up to the end of the conversation, end of the hour, and I don't want to take up your whole day. I've really appreciated the conversation we've had so far. Here in a minute, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you my three closing questions. I will give those to you now so you can percolate on them while I take a look at your website and read from our last sponsor. But just so you can think about those, question number one is this: if I gave you a magic wand and you could change something about your law firm right now, just like that, what would you change and why? Number two, we go back in time and meet young Pamela, maybe fresh out of law school, maybe 14 years ago or so, and you're able to whisper just some piece of advice without breaking the space-time continuum in your ear. Other than there's this thing called Bitcoin that's coming down the pipeline. Look for it and buy a lot of it. Trust me, it'll be worth like 100K at some point. And then number three, if I gave you my pen, and this pen is almost out of ink, like it really just has like this much ink, but it's magical ink, and this ink can strike laws from the books, add laws, or edit laws. What is one law that you would like to strike, add, edit, change, etc.? And this can be in your wheelhouse, or you can just get rid of, I don't know, income tax or traffic tickets or whatever it is you want to get rid of. So I'll give you carte blanche to use the pen. While you're percolating on that, however, we are going to jump back over again and take a look at your site. Again, I am talking to the lovely Pamela Hailey-Petty, who runs the eponymous law firm that bears her name, the Hailey-Petty Law Firm, PLLC. That's haileypettylaw.com. You can give her a call at 512-910-8977 or 210 in San Antonio, 570-2458. Give her a call, visit her online. If you're in the Texas area, you need someone to walk you through the process of wills and estates and trusts and probate and all of these issues. Get started by getting knowledge. And she sounds like she has some amazing resources that would help you get your grounding. As I always say, it's the tagline of the show: if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. You need to at least know the questions. You need to know what you don't know in order to even know what you need to start learning about in order to cover your bases. And I think that Pamela and her law firm will be a wonderful resource for you. So again, that is haileypettylaw.com, and we will have a link to that down below. Our final sponsor for today is SearchSift. SearchSift, do you know why in certain industries like law and marketing, clicks in Google, that is Google AdWords, can cost over $100, over $200, even over $500 or more? It's not because Google has a magical make things expensive button. It's because Google Ads is an auction. And when 5 or 10 or 20 law firms or businesses are all bidding on the same high intent search phrases, divorce attorney near me, car accident lawyer near me, criminal defense attorney, probate attorney, whatever it happens to be, the price gets bid up and up and up. And here's what most firms and other businesses miss before someone ever clicks on an ad, before they ever see the map pack, before they ever choose a law firm from page one of Google. Google's already shaping the search with autocomplete suggestions, and that's where SearchSift comes in. SearchSift helps position your firm or your business earlier in the search journey, inside of the predictive searches that people see before they make their decision. So instead of only fighting after the search happens, you start influencing intent before the click. And you don't pay just to show up. You only pay when somebody actually clicks on your website and visits you. So you're literally only paying for traffic from Google. And the neat thing about SearchSift is, again, they will get you ranked for free. You're only paying for traffic, and you're usually going to get 2 to 3 times the traffic you get from Google, because they only charge if they go to your website. So if they do a search in Google and they land on your Google Maps, you don't pay for that. That's a free click as well, which is really neat. So if you're tired of paying auction prices for every single lead, maybe it's time to stop fighting where everyone else is and move to the blue ocean. Visit SearchSift, that's SYFT, searchsift.com, and see what your market looks like. Visit searchsift.com. All right. So Pamela, question number one: I have a magic wand and I give it to you. And with this magic wand, it's also almost out of magical power. All of my magical devices, they just get used so much that there's not a lot of juice left. But this magic wand lets you make one change, just hey presto, about your firm. What's the one thing you would love to change about your firm if you could change anything?
Change anything? I would have a larger bank of videos in my YouTube account. I'm playing catch up on that and trying to generate a lot more resources for clients, but I think that would be, I think that would be it.
Incidentally, here is her, here is the YouTube page right here. And she definitely has some good videos. I see pages of videos here. You're doing a good job. So another great resource for you guys, and I'll try to remember, I have my assistant, if I remember, put a link to your YouTube channel down here. Do you have other social media? Do you also have like a Instagram or TikTok? I know a lot of people, work across all those different channels.
Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I do have a TikTok account. We have never posted to it. And then, of course, LinkedIn.
Gotcha. So I actually have a total side venture that I do, and I have one of those platforms that lets me post to one thing and it goes to everywhere. And because it had TikTok as an option, I was like, oh, all right, I'll make a TikTok. So I made a TikTok and I plugged it in. It was the first channel I had that took off faster than anything else. I'll tell you that right now. And it took me by surprise, but it's one of those platforms where people are scrolling. And I mean, you see the 3 second attention span. It can be frustrating, but I know a lot of attorneys that I'm actually connected with. I've met through TikTok, and
Hmm.
surprisingly, they get a lot of content, a lot of people through TikTok. In fact, I found Instagram was my slowest channel by far for whatever reason. This is not in a legal
Yeah.
niche, it's not in a marketing niche at all. But it's just been interesting to see. So I would recommend, and there's platforms out there that'll let you plug everything in and you send it one time and it goes out to all of them. So I would recommend you get your TikTok up and running only because I've seen it firsthand work successfully. But
Okay.
if I'll have my assistant do that as well. If we can find links to everything, we'll put out your social medias as well so people can follow you on the social medias. Okay, so lots of videos. That is a good place to begin. You've got a good start, but hopefully you'll get some more up there, and maybe next time we talk, you'll have a dozen more. So there's definitely,
Mhm.
it's not like you haven't put anything out. You definitely have
Yeah.
content, which is good. Okay, so question number two. We travel back in time. It is now the year,
Hmm.
let's say 2012. You're fresh out of law school. You see yourself, you walk over, and without breaking the space-time continuum, you can give yourself a piece of advice. Pamela, what advice would you give yourself, and maybe by extension, a graduate fresh out of law school, starting their career?
Hmm. Oh gosh, where do I start? I mean, I would not have taken as long as I did to hire my first employee, um, because there's just so much to do. You can't possibly do everything, and I would have leveraged that more than I did. I think it was 4 years before I hired my first employee once I started my practice, and right, I should have probably done it within a year,
Yeah.
but live and learn.
You sound like you're probably like me in that you hate to delegate. At least initially, it's hard. Like, I know what I want, I know how to do it, and I have to
Yeah,
explain to you how to do it. You're never gonna do it the way I want, so why would I ever want to delegate? And then you find it was Henry Ford who said, "I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. I just have to hire the smartest people." I'm like, well, you can
yeah,
find people that are very very smart. They're actually better than you
yeah,
at whatever it is you want to do. At least a lot. Maybe they can't pass the bar, but a lot of the day-to-day stuff that you need done, they'll do better than you do. So
yeah.
I'm a firm believer as well, and learning how to hire definitely makes a huge difference in growing any sort of a
Oh,
business
for
one day.
sure. And now I have a lot
100%.
of people that are better than me in other areas. So should have done it sooner.
That's awesome. That makes sense. Okay, so question number three. This is a magical pen. Now, this pen is from
Mm.
an abbey, a Benedictine abbey in Atchison, Kansas, kansasmonks.org. And one of the priests must have blessed this pen because it has this miraculous ink. But again, it's almost out because I loan it out all the time. But if I were to give you this pen and you could make one change, Pamela, what change would you make and why? Any change you want, national, local, major ramifications, or maybe there's just a law that makes you fill out forms in triplicate for every single one of your clients, and you're just like, man, if I could just stop doing that, I'd be great.
Mm.
What's the one law you would change?
Probably the forcing parents into a court supervised probate when there are minor children. If those children are also the surviving spouse's children, I would like to not have to go through a court supervised probate for that.
Gotcha.
It is just right, kind of along the same lines of the surviving spouse. People can't imagine that that is what's going to happen,
Yeah.
and so
Hmm.
people are, understandably upset
Yeah.
about the cost and time that it takes to do that. So I'd rather not have that conversation.
Well, they have to feel blindsided. And anybody, I've had to bury multiple parents at this point, so I know how expensive a funeral is. Funerals are expensive. You just get through with trying to come up with 20, $30,000 for the
Yep.
funeral expenses, which I didn't realize it was that. I knew it was expensive. I was expecting maybe 10 to 15, and it's like $30,000 going with the budget options. And then to turn around and now you're stuck in probate. You got to hire an attorney. You got to do all these other things. Like, that's just a 1-2 punch that nobody wants to deal with. So I think that's a
Yeah.
that's a very good answer. 100%.
Yeah. I
Uh,
Yeah, costs don't go down after you pass away. They increase, at least temporarily.
Absolutely. Well, Pamela, thank you very much for joining me today. I always like to let my guest have the final word. Are there any last words of wisdom or parting thoughts you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
Yeah, I think the important thing that I'd like people to understand is this area of law, kind of two things happen. One, people don't want to think about it, and they kind of explain to themselves in their mind what they think is going to happen, and they justify not doing anything, right? And that can be disastrous.
Mhm.
It is definitely something, get something done. Kind of back to the will versus trust. Don't get into analysis by paralysis. Just get a good plan in place. You can always add a trust to it,
Yeah.
right? So
Something
get
is
a
better,
good
infinitely
base
better than nothing.
plan. Exactly. Yeah. The state of Texas has a plan for you. Almost guaranteed you won't like it. Don't procrastinate. Get something in place, and please don't let it be a DIY, because that's the other piece. That is definitely a penny wise, pound foolish sort of scenario.
You mean I can't just tell Chat GPT to draft the whole thing in one go and then it's done? Is
ah
that what you're saying?
yes, yes. We had a client recently put our trust into Chat GPT, and the what came out was preposterous, like just not even close to reality. So, probably at some point it will be there. It's not there now. That would have cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars
Yeah.
in unintended taxes
No,
if they had done
absolutely.
that. So,
And I imagine it would also cost them a lot in lawsuits. I imagine a lot of attorneys have a vested interest in making sure that attorney GPT just isn't quite a thing yet. We'll see. We'll see what the future has to hold. But
yeah,
we're not there yet, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah,
Well,
not
this has
there.
been a wonderful conversation, Pamela. Thank you very much for talking with me today. This has been, as always, the Attorney Post. I am your host, Justin West. And as always, this podcast, though we do talk about a lot of different legal topics and issues, does not constitute legal advice. And you should always seek the advice of a competent attorney in your area who focuses on the matter you need help with. However, obviously, if you need help with estates and planning, if you need help with probate or any of those issues and you're in the Texas area, I think that Pamela would be a wonderful resource for you. So I strongly recommend you reach out to her firm. Again, we will have links down below to all of her resources. If you're watching this on YouTube, we always appreciate a like, a subscribe, and a share. If you're on any of the podcast repositories, Apple, Spotify, etc., rate us, review us, etc. But the number one thing you can do to help us grow this podcast is simply this. If you know someone who would benefit from the knowledge found in this podcast, maybe somebody facing probate in Texas or Austin right now, right? Please feel free to share this with them. Help them begin the process of getting the information that they need. Because as I always say, and this goes for them as well, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Until next time, this is Justin West, your host. Thank you guys for listening, and have a good one. Bye-bye.